Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I am so happy to have my friend Caryn Kopp on television with me again for the second time in a while. Good morning, Caryn. How are you?
Good morning. Everything's going really great here in Bedminster. How are you?
Great to hear you. You look terrific. You know, it's been a while since we've seen one another. I know this pandemic has kept us apart, but wow, you look terrific.
You're very kind, and you never age.
Thank you, thank you. So, Kopp Consulting, you're the chief door opener. Now, I have to say, in full disclosure, I worked for Caryn for a couple of years. I love her company. I love her, and she, you know what they do is so difficult, but they do it so well because they have such great people and a great leader. And Caryn, I want to talk to you now about the tough time that you're faced with regard to this pandemic and how you're virtually trying to prospect and change your business model from where it was to where it currently is.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people in that situation where they do need to change their business models, and there are certain companies out there and certain sellers out there where the ideal client for them before is no longer their ideal client, or the centers of influence by which they got all of their clients are no longer the right centers of influence. So it requires that people actually have to rethink this and go back to the drawing board and find out where the money is going to come from right now, who is spending right now, who is laying the foundation for later in the year or into next year, and set their new ideal clients and centers of influence, and then make a plan for reaching out to them now virtually. Because a lot of people got their clients through conferences, trade shows, and in-person networking.
Sure.
Those things are not going to be happening anytime soon. And you know what, Mark? If they do, they're going to happen like this.
Yeah.
This is what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so virtually actually is a wonderful way to open the door and start conversations with people who can become your clients, who can become your best centers of influence, but it just needs to be done a little differently. And this is what we've been doing for 20 years as our company has grown over time. And I can tell you this, that getting in the door is different now than it was 4 months ago. Mm-hmm. And that's different than it was 6 months ago. And that's different than it was 3 years ago.
Right.
So things have changed over time. And it's really important that everybody knows what it's going to take to get those meetings now, to get in the door with your ideal clients and start those conversations.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you approach prospects now and trying to meet prospects virtually. Take us through that process.
Yeah, so the first thing is that it's really important to identify who these people are for you now. Mm-hmm. If you take a look at the world of prospects, it's a big world, and we want to make it more narrow. We want to spend the time focused on only those prospects who are going to feel urgency around having a conversation with you for a particular reason. Mm-hmm. They're going to willingly pay what you want to charge for your services.
Right.
Not everybody out there is going to pay for value. And if you can identify ahead of time, before you start reaching out, those people who are less likely to pay for value, you won't be spending your time there. It's a much more efficient approach. And then you also want to contact people who will find you to be an obvious solution now that their worlds have changed. Remember that the prospects' worlds have changed too, not just yours.
Right.
So you need to find out who are you most relevant to now. And then the next thing is to identify what you're going to say to those people to bring them to a phone call with you. Mm-hmm. We are still finding that phone and email is what's working, but what most people are doing now is they're just sending email, and very few people are calling. As a CEO of my company, Mark, I'm getting like 150, 200 emails from people wanting to sell me stuff.
Sure.
Do you know how many of those people are picking up the phone to start a dialogue with me? Very few.
Very few.
So the phone is the way to go, you guys. It's let's go back to that.
And that's what makes Kopp Consulting and the business that you've run for the last 20 years, Caryn, so unique because, you've got such incredible people working for you, and you told me a while ago that, there's a big difference between a hunter and a person who is cultivating new business and a door opener. The skills are different, and you seem to find people and have successfully found people over the last 20 years that have that really uncanny knack of being able to open a door. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yes, I mean, this is really a DNA thing. Everybody knows the difference between the hunters and the farmers. The farmers grow the business and the hunters find the business. Mm-hmm. But here's the blind spot, is that within the world of hunters, there are different kinds of hunters. There are many out there who are just great at going on the meetings and closing the sales. In our world, we call them the closers. And then there are a few out there, not that many, of those people who just have it in their DNA like you do, Mark. I mean, you are an outstanding door opener with us. And you just have it in your DNA to contact somebody who you don't know and make a difference in that person's life such that that person will say yes to a meeting.
Right.
That's what we call an opener. Now, the most common form of a sales mishire is the door opener, the person who gets the doors open, because often management goes out looking for just a good hunter, but they're not looking to find out, are they interviewing for an opener or a closer? At our company, we only hire openers. As I said, we've been in this business for 20 years. We have perfected the science of finding the openers, and that's who's here. Our people are senior level business developers who have it in their DNA to open doors with people they don't know. Many have been corporate decision makers before too, which adds a level of professionalism that's really important in making connections with executives.
Yeah. What are some of the things that most business owners do not realize when it comes to door opening and the persistence and perseverance that it takes for someone who is a door opener to accomplish, setting up a new meeting, let's say? What are some of the things that, say, business owners fail to understand or really don't understand that what it takes really to open a door?
Yeah, that's a good question, and boy, we can have a whole segment on that alone.
Well, you can come back.
There are a lot of things that if you're not sitting in the seat of actually doing the work, that is really hard to understand. So, for example, the business leaders will say, they'll say to me, I want my caller to make 60 calls in an hour. And then I'll say, okay, well, then you're going to have 60 crappy calls. Is that what you want? To really do this right, this is a slow dance. What we'll do when we start with a new prospect and we're putting a new prospect into rotation, the door opener already has sales language, not marketing language, but sales language that is right for that particular prospect. Then they'll do further research and find out more about this person on LinkedIn, on Google, what's not just the person, but the company, the industry, the competitors, what's happening that might further personalize the message, the sales message that's already been created.
Right.
Then they'll place the phone call, and if they reach somebody, it's 2 sentences and a question to springboard dialogue. Well, those 2 sentences and which question make a big difference. If you have the wrong sentences, the wrong questions, the call goes nowhere. You have the right sentences, the right questions, then you're into the dialogue you want. And you don't get a second chance either.
Yeah.
So when people are saying, okay, well, just pick up the phone and start making some calls, that's not thinking this through. That's not making a relationship of value with the other person. Why should that person take a meeting with your company? It's really important that the door opener be able to articulate that, and very few think about that before they pick up the phone. The email is the same thing. As I said, phone, email in combination is what works. Of course, with other things too, linking in with people, you can send things to
Sure.
people by snail mail if you want. But phone and email, that combo is really important. But the email can't be the same email that was meant for 999 other people.
Exactly.
It has to be personalized, and not just by switching out someone's name, but personalized to that person to give that person a reason why that meeting is going to be the best decision he makes all week, or she.
Absolutely. Now, again, you taught me another thing a while back, and you just mentioned it a few moments ago, that sales language and marketing language or marketing messaging are different.
Yes.
What a lot of times people don't understand, especially in the world of marketing, is that they can just take their marketing message and simply give it to their, quote, salespeople. Explain the differences, if you will, between sales language, Caryn, and marketing language.
Okay, great. And this is really important too, and often an area of blind spot for the business leaders and sometimes the salespeople as well, that there's a difference between marketing language and sales language. So the marketing message is what's in your value proposition. It's on your website, it's in your advertising, it's meant for a very broad audience. Mm-hmm. Sales language, on the other hand, is meant for one person. It's the spoken word. It's the email meant to move one person in his or her thinking from one place to the next. If your sales language is not doing that often enough for you, it's time to go back and first take a really hard look at your target. Should you be spending time with the people who you're currently spending time with from a prospecting perspective?
Right.
And then the next thing is the message. If people are telling you that they're not interested, it's likely that you didn't say something that was interesting enough to them for them to feel that giving up time is worth it. And that's what the sales message is all about. Now, you can't use the same voicemail and email the second time with the same person. You have to vary that over time, deepen the message, grow the relationship, even if you haven't yet spoken to someone. They're still hearing your voice on the phone. You are a human. They might be seeing your emails in that sea of emails that they're getting. But when you call them, that now you're a person. You have flesh and blood, and so do they. And you need to make a personal connection using sales language, not marketing language.
Absolutely. You know, one of the great things about working for Kopp, with Kopp over a couple year period has been your system, your process. You've developed something called the 5 planks.
Yes.
We're going to have to take a quick break, a commercial break, but when we come back, I'd love for you to talk about that. And then the big question I have, Caryn, is now in this world of virtual selling, how do we really conduct a sales meeting virtually?
Okay.
We will be
Looking forward to it.
Okay, cool. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Number 7. Number 8.
9 regular. Oh, wait. 13 giant. The usual?
Of course. Number 1.
Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacqueline. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacqueline.com to book an appointment today.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
Well, welcome back to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I'm having an awesome conversation with Caryn Kopp, Chief Door Opener from Kopp Consulting. And Caryn, before the break, we were starting to talk about the 5 planks. And it's not just the 5 planks. It's a developed system over the years, the 20 years that you've been in business that works.
Yes.
I get into conversations with people all the time about how I do it. How can you possibly, get through to people? And the way you and Kopp Consulting have worked over the last 20 years to me is remarkable, because you have a systematic approach to this. And I'd like you to talk about that for a moment, please.
Sure. And some of these things we talked about in the first segment, but it is about the 5 planks of door opening success.
Yeah.
If you're not getting as many prospect meetings of the right kind as you think you should, there's a problem in one or more of 5 key planks of door opening success. And the first plank we talked about, which is the right target. But I can tell you from my consulting work, when I work with companies and I look at the salespeople and how much time they're spending on which kinds of prospects, there's usually 25%, and I'm being generous, 25% of the prospects that the salespeople are spending time on don't deserve their time and attention if you really did the ideal client section of right target correctly.
Absolutely.
So be choosy, be really choosy. There not only should be a really good reason why it's important for you to target those people, but there should be also a really important reason why those people should want to know about you, right? So it's that important. Usually when people have a difficulty later on in the sales process with proposals stuck in the pipeline or things not moving forward, when we analyze that, there was usually a problem with the target in the first place. It probably wasn't a good target in the first place. So right target is the first plank. The second plank is the right message. Now, we talked about that before the break.
Yep.
The difference between the marketing message and the sales message. And if your message isn't making as big an impact as it needs to, then you need to go back to the drawing board and really think about what is it that those people who are part of your ideal target are going to want to hear from you that would make them feel that they should knock 3 people off an already busy calendar to make room for you.
Right.
That's how important that message is. So right target, right message. The third plank is the right answers for objections. You're going to get the objections, so you might as well be prepared for them.
Yep.
And the most important one I would say is we're already handling that a certain way, or we have another vendor. Make sure you have a slam dunk for that. Now, we have a trademark process called the Kopp Gap method of sales message. Actually, Mark, that's new since the last time I was on the show, that we've trademarked that as a method of sales messaging. And that's what you need for a slam dunk for when someone says, I already have a vendor for that. If this is done properly, and later on in the summer, actually, I'm going to be doing a workshop on this. People can sign up for it. It's public. It's going to be free.
Okay.
And I'll walk you through how to do the Kopp Gap method of sales messaging. When it's done correctly, it basically renders your competition irrelevant.
Wow.
So it's really important that everybody nails that one.
Yep.
Okay, so right target, right message, right answers for objection. The fourth plank is the right door opener. So we talked about that. Not everybody should be opening doors for you. Be really choosy about who is getting these doors open. You don't have a second chance at that same conversation with a prospect. You only get one shot.
Yep.
So is the person who you have assigned this responsibility able to hold their own in a conversation with a decision maker? If the answer to that is no, then it's time to start looking for either other people within your organization to do the opening portion of the job. Doesn't mean you have to get rid of your salesperson. You just need the right person to do the opening.
Right.
Or you can look at an outsourced solution like Kopp Consulting.
Exactly.
The fifth plank is the right process. So is it a phone call? Is it an email? How many phone calls? How many emails? How much space in between the phone calls and emails so that you can follow the 3 Ps of prospect follow-up, which is persistence, with patience, without being a pest.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to make sure you're making a relationship with these people.
Absolutely.
Now, the biggest mistake that people make when it's the fifth plank, the right execution, is that they don't put in enough time, not enough overall time to make a difference in getting enough of the meetings that they want. People may only have 2 hours on a Friday, and then they don't have another 2 hours for another 3 months. Guess what? Go to the beach, go watch a movie, go do something else in those 2 hours, because 2 hours is not enough.
Right.
So when people come to us and they need outside help, it's either because they or their salespeople don't have enough time in the week because they are truly busy with other things like building relationships, protecting client base, and closing sales, important things.
Yeah.
So they're truly busy and they don't have enough time to put against door opening to make a difference. Sometimes they'll come to us because they want to swim upstream. They want to go after higher level decision makers or bigger companies or a new market, and they don't have the talent internally to get those doors open. And still other times it's desire. People will have the right people who could do this job, but those people would rather put a stick in their eye than do this work. Well, we're here to help in that situation.
Absolutely.
But, so those are the 5 planks, Mark. Right target, right message, right answers for objections, the right door opener doing the work, and that right person is using the right process along with dedicating enough time to it to make a difference.
Thank you for that. I just want to make sure everyone understands that, when you look at the right target, Caryn, that process takes a fair amount of time and diligence. And so each one of those planks, if you think about them in deep detail, they really do take a long time to get perfected. So one of the wonderful things about Kopp is that you take the time to develop the messaging. You take the time to look for the right door opener. You take the time to develop the right list. You take the time to go out and be persistent with these clients. So if you're watching out there, there is really no better way to go out and prospect and open doors than by hiring Caryn and Kopp Consulting. There's much more to it, as I said earlier, of the 5 planks than just mentioning 5 planks. You have to think about how much goes into each of those areas.
Yeah, also, and think about how much simpler your life would be if you had a consistent flow of the right new prospect meetings coming into the top of your funnel, because then you could spend your time on what only you can do, which is likely having those meetings, writing those proposals, doing that nurturing, and closing the deals, along with protecting your current client base. You would have enough time to do those things because somebody else was taking care of getting you the high level meetings and feeding them to you so you can be most efficient with your time as well. Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing. It's a happy thing to do, Mark, to give people the gift of these meetings and a full top of funnel.
Absolutely, I agree. So let's now fast forward, and you set up a meeting. What is going on currently with setting up these virtual meetings, and how are people how do you need to conduct them in the current environment?
Right. So it is different now. I mean, people have said to me that they're waiting for meetings until they can see people in person because they're more comfortable that way. And my advice is don't wait.
Yeah.
Don't wait. We don't know when that's coming back. And when it does come back, I think it's going to come back right before concerts do, right? that a prospect will agree to take the risk of having somebody come in and have that meeting.
Yeah.
So, but even when that does happen, as I said before, it's going to look like this. All you're going to be able to see is somebody's eyes. That's really it.
Yep.
Whereas when you have a virtual meeting and you're on a Zoom call or WebEx or one of the other platforms, you're seeing right into someone's home. You guys are seeing right into my home office.
Yes.
See my collection of doors, right?
I
Cheap door
do.
opener. You're seeing right into someone's home, and you could see their full face. It's a much more human way to develop a relationship. The conversations now are starting with what's going on behind them.
Yeah.
What's going on? Are you homeschooling? Are you not homeschooling? Taking care of parents? It becomes a much faster way to be able to build a relationship with somebody because you're basically seeing right into their homes. Now, when we schedule the meetings for our clients, our door openers are on those meetings too. So you have a senior level business developer on that call with you. And what we do is we introduce everybody to each other. We remind everybody why we're there, so that puts everybody in the conversation funnel. And now we turn over the conversation to our client. There are different things that have to happen, and then some of the same things that happen. There needs to be more conversation. It's a couple of sentences and then ask a question. Make sure you're constantly having what we would call conversation ping pong, where you're turning it over to someone else by asking them a question to keep them engaged. Video on, everybody.
Yeah.
I would say in the last 4 weeks, 90% of the prospect calls that I have been on are with video. Now, not everybody is comfortable with video. It's time to get comfortable with video. You can practice with your relatives, you can practice with your teammates, but video is what the prospects want. When we get
Right.
on the call, they have their video on. If you don't, what people think is, oh, that person's probably multitasking or not paying attention. So you need to be able to have your video on, be ready, even if it's only from the waist up, be ready. You don't have to dress up. It's not suit and tie kind of dressing up, but the people who come to the call having just worked out and they're sweaty and they have raggedy clothes on, this is still business. So that's not your best foot forward. I recommend being prepared from the waist up and have the conversation. You can start by talking about what's behind them and what's behind you.
Sure.
And then go into the reason for your phone call. Now, here's one of the things that's the same, and not a lot of people used to do it, but it is the single easiest way to shorten your sales cycle, which is always ask for a date and time at the end of every meeting,
Yep.
a date and time for the next meeting, every meeting. If a full meeting is not quite appropriate, then ask for a 10-minute check-in call.
Sure.
Right? So you want to do that at the end of every meeting. Go ahead, Mark.
No, Caryn, I'm blown away by how amazing you are and this business is that you've built over the years. You know, I think about this often, and certainly talk about you to a lot of people. You're one of those people that come around very, very few times in a lifetime. Just a real high energy, but very, very bright person who sees into things that are very different than others. And the way you've adapted to this pandemic, you know, over the last 4 months is incredibly, to me, it's admirable, because this is a very difficult time. People are not working in their home office. They're working remotely. A lot of business owners kind of give up on prospecting, and you know, you're out there full bore doing what Kopp Consulting has done so well for the last 20 years. I'm just so impressed with the work that you do, and just enjoy listening to you talk about how to do things the right way. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That's a beautiful compliment. I really do appreciate it. You know how much I love you and everything that you're doing as well.
Thank you.
So it's a mutual admiration society. I mean,
Thanks.
one of the things over the last like 8 weeks, 10 weeks that I have felt very strongly about is to educate as many people as possible
Yep.
about how to get these meetings virtually and then how to have them virtually. There are people who will hire Kopp Consulting to do the door opener program for them. But for those people who don't, if they're doing this themselves, they need to know what works. I have a whole team of people who are doing this successfully right now.
Yep.
So I bring that information to those sessions, the webinars, to share it with people so that they know that this is possible. We're doing it every day. So this is possible. They just need to know what the steps are, and which I lay out in these webinars. There's 2 of them free that if people write me, and I know you'll put up my contact information.
Yep.
I'm happy to send virtual prospect meetings best practices, as well as the 5 planks of door opening success, the longer version, so people have it. But the most important thing about everything that I talk about is the last part of it, which is you got to do it.
Yep.
I mean, you have to be honest with yourself and really do it.
Yep.
Because all the planning, all the messaging, all the target refinement work and things like that mean nothing unless you actually do this.
Absolutely.
And that's what people need to do. They need to know this is possible and they must get started.
Yep, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. You're an inspiration to me and a lot of other people. Please tell us how to get in touch with you and Kopp Consulting.
Yes, people can write me through the website, which is Kopp Consulting USA, KOPP Consulting USA.com, and then just write us in the contact us if you're looking to have a conversation with me, if you're looking to ask some questions, or if you're looking for those webinars, or even if you want to be signed up for the messaging workshop, which is the GAP messaging workshop. Let us know and we'll make sure you're on that list. And I wish everybody happy hunting. And Mark, thank you so much for having me.
Caryn, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for Rainmakers Roundup. Have a wonderful and safe week, everyone. Happy 4th. We'll see you soon. Stay safe.